Hi Anupama, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, for audience who don't know you already, how do you introduce yourself in like?
I'm Anupama Vedachala. I'm a bonsai artist based in Bangalore. I've been practicing this art from 25 30 years and I'm professional in bonsai.
Wow. Okay, so we are here to cover about bonsais today, right? And I would want to start from the basic of the basic questions that we would have on bonsai front. Um, let's start into firstly when I think about bonsai. I think about something like gardening first of all. That's where we start.
Yes.
What is the difference between gardening and bonsai art?
Basically, bonsai is also a form of gardening because it involves a lot of horticultural methods as the general gardening goes. But bonsai's selection of species are very important. We kind of select plants which are tree variety and also have smaller leaf. And we have very limited soil in bonsai, unlike general garden where we use bigger trough to grow plants. Here it's a shallow container, so your science also matters. Science, when I say science, it's about the soil mixture, right fertilizing, right amount of water and everything.
Got it. So, what are these few plants that we normally see in our daily lives that can be made as a bonsai?
Yes, any avenue tree can be made into a bonsai as long as it has smaller leaf. For example, your Ficus religiosa, Ficus bengalensis.
Okay, I would need the actual names of these.
Okay, when I say Ficus bengalensis, it is that in Kannada Alada Mara. Ficus religiosa, Arali Mara, what we worship as well.
Correct.
So, Ficus glumerata, Patti Mara, and Ficus Sheila, that is that Basari Mara, which is available all over. Many of the ficus species are available all around us.
So, okay, let me get started with the very basics, right? Okay, I have decided that I'm going to get into bonsai art and I'm searching for which species of plant should I pick up and what are the small branches or like how do I start? Like, where do I look for these plants? Should I go to a nursery and ask them to give me like a cutting or something? Like, how do I start?
When you start, I would always advise people who start initially to get into species which are very easy to maintain. When I say very easy, very tolerant towards whatever mistakes we do. As it is, when you just leave the plants to grow with little water and fertilizing, they grow on their own. But we are going to apply little horticultural skills. That's when we can go wrong. So I probably, in my opinion, you should go for species like ficus, bougainvillea, and which are available very easily in the nurseries. So even the forest nurseries have ficus because they do give out to plant in open. So you can go in for bougainvillea, premnas, and also your ficuses. Many variety of ficuses are available. So that's.
So these are like the plants that you would suggest folks who are getting started now.
Yes, get started with these plants because they're very forgiving when you do anything. They come back.
Yeah, they are more tolerant. I think
more tolerant to
for example, like snake plants as well. Like that's one plant which I've not managed to kill until now, right? So I think something similar.
Yes, even if you miss out little water, they're still tolerant. Yeah.
Okay. So we were briefly talking about the history of where bonsai art comes from before we get started as well. I would really want you to explain that. Like, where do we start? Because when I was figuring out, bonsai art primarily was like, okay, this is a Japanese art form. So if it is a Japanese art form, how well are we practicing in India? And if we are practicing to what scales? These are like the broad questions that I have around this piece.
Because we've read in many books that it's a Japanese art, and also Chinese also claim that it is our art. So, but actually it originated in India. Many of us don't know it originated in India.
Okay.
If I have to say, dating back to the mythology, Hanuman carried Sanjeevani medicinal plant. It is the mountainscape what he carried. He shrunk the mountain and he carried. Obviously, he could not have carried a bigger mountain. So that is how a part of mountain he carried. And also dating back to 1st century and 2nd century, our medicine like Charaka and Samyuta, the science of Ayurveda, they practiced it. They were the surgeons and also they practiced the medicinal this one. That is when they collected a lot of medicinal plants and they preserve them. The Buddhist monks, the Chinese Buddhist monks would come and learn the science of Ayurveda. They wanted to take these medicinal plants across Himalayas. They still tried carrying a small sapling that wouldn't weather out. They would obviously die with, taking it across in that weather conditions for a month was a difficult task. So they started stunting the growth of these plants, and then they started carrying. When I say stunted, they started cutting. When you have more shoots, you have more roots. So that even the part of plants would die, other part would still be alive. They would revive that, and that's how stunting of the plants started. The nurseries also, to cater to them, started stunting the growth in India. So they carried it. It was Japanese who noticed it in China, and then they kind of studied their nature. They formed the guidelines and introduced it to Western world.
Calling the bonsai art.
Yeah, calling the bonsai art.
Interesting. So is this how all the migration of plants or flowers happen from one country to other as well?
Yes.
In a bonsai form?
Yes. No, many times in a bonsai farm those days. But now you can get your small cutting, small grafted ones, plants and things like that. We have many in our Lal Bagh, we have many species which has come from the other part, South American countries as well. Because many of our Gul Mohar, for example, is from there. Few are originated. We have tropical climate, and they too have tropical climate. That is where, in fact, probably our trees have also gone there. For example, indica. Indica is the name of Tamarindus indica. Anything which follows with the indica is Indian-based tree.
Interesting. But when we say that we are currently not using as many bonsais to transfer plants from one place to another, is it because our conditions of transferring these plants has become much sophisticated? We have technology, or we have ways to preserve these plants for them to travel overseas. And also, I think bonsais are more sensitive, right? Like, are they not as sensitive as the saplings themselves? Like,
they stunted the growth for only one reason. See, when it is a sapling, the amount of roots will be very, very less, and it's only one shoot. Whereas, for example, if you take any bonsai, it has a lot of roots, and the roots are very close to the trunk line. The feeder roots, what we call, the nutrition sucking roots, are very close to the trunk line for us to place it in a small shallow container. So when it is that, the number of roots are there, any kind of a stress happening to the root, they still can revive much better. Few roots gets affected, the other few roots are there to compensate. And when you have lot of roots, the shoots are also very healthy. The amount of shoots are more. Whereas when an young sapling can die faster.
Got it. So, how do you think the art form of bonsai has evolved over years? Like, you've been practicing it for like past 25, 30 years, right? What difference have you seen from people practicing it before, and how many youngsters have you seen are interested now? Where do you think this entire bonsai art is going towards?
Bonsai art as such has evolved really, really well. Earlier it would be more of, since Japanese introduced it, they studied their nature. For example, they studied pines and junipers, and they formulated guidelines according to it. Whereas we live in a tropical climate, and we always have to follow the way our trees grows. So if you train our ficus into a pine mode, it's going to look very decorative and artificial. So that's how it has evolved. Like I'm going to train ficus in more of a broom style, more open, not like a conifer. So it doesn't look like a bonsai, but it looks more natural like a tree. So that's how it has evolved.
So I did not know about the concept of training the trees in the first place. Sounds fun. When you say training the trees, is it more like from a nature, sunlight, water perspective, or what do we mean? Like, I also saw that we have few strings which are attached to the bonsai trees, right? Okay. Yeah. Let me get to that question. Like, how are the tools? Like, what are the tools that we use to start off? Let me say I'm going to start my bonsai planting today. What are the things that I would need, and what are the tools that I can use today to get started?
To start with, pair of scissors and secateurs are more than enough for you to start.
Okay.
Once you little progress with wiring and things like that, you require a wire cutter, can be any of the cutting pliers what you can use initially to begin with. But the species what you select should be good. The tree varieties what you select should have smaller leaf trees. So that is one important thing what you have to.
So why do we wire the trees though? Like, are we like providing a direction? Is it like me connecting a string to money plant and saying, hey, just follow this climber? But is it going to work the same way with bonsais as well?
Yes, exactly. We are directing it. See, when I said they studied the nature, they studied nature in the sense it is not only the form or the morphology of the plant, how it is growing, they noticed, but they also noticed how the tree in different topography it is growing. For example, when it comes to waterfall, how the plant grows down, we call it something like cascade. If it is growing in plains, then it is more of a broom style. The trees grows like this. When it is comfortable with sunlight and water, it is the straight tree which we call it formal upright. When it searches for sunlight, then it turns according to even the sunlight also changes according to the axis. The sun also changes the axis according to the seasons. That's how the plant also grows in search of sunlight. So we give it different shapes. So when we have to give it different shapes, we use wires to direct them and place also the branches in a particular position.
Good. That's quite interesting. Okay, so I also know that you do bonsai workshops, right? What are the common rookie mistakes that the new beginners do? Like,
The first mistake what they do is as soon as they acquire the species, they're very enthusiastic to put it in a bonsai container, like ceramic container.
that was going to be me. Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing what see, when you acquire species, you would have acquired a small sapling. You have to turn, it's a potential material, potensai we call it. You have to convert that into a pre-bonsai. Put it in a container, know a good science of how to grow it. When I say science, the amount of sunlight it requires, the soil mixture it requires, fertilize it, allow it to grow and thicken. Bonsai is all about having a thick material in a small container.
How do I learn about the science part though? Like, do we
With
have...
the bonsai people who are all there to teach you, probably some books will also teach you, webinars. But when it comes to horticultural techniques, then you have to learn it in person, in my opinion. All these web and also all this internet may not help you when you have to learn the horticultural technique.
It's more like hands-on practice.
Hands-on practice will only help. It's like any art form, any singing as well. When you hear it on the this one, it is different. But when in person, when you learn, it is different. Even playing tennis, for example, you require to learn it. Although you get so many books.
That is true. It's
Yeah.
more like watching people how to swim and then you actually swimming, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of difference
Yeah.
between that.
Yes.
Interesting. And also, one thing that we've noticed is that bonsais are so expensive. Okay, firstly, why are bonsais very expensive? And nextly, how do we make it expensive? Is there a way you make it expensive?
Yes, and see, there's a misconception that starting this bonsai hobby is a very expensive. It gets expensive when you have to buy a piece like this which is fully formed. That's because the artist would have really given his time, energy in creating this. So when you go to buy a material which is already finished, then it's going to be very expensive. But if you as a beginner start, you can also start with collecting the material which is grown on the footpath, on the wall also. You can find many ficus religiosas grown on the wall. If you go to MG Road, I find many of them, in fact. So you just ask the owner, he'll be more than happy to take it out because his building is also cracking with that. So you pull that out and get it. Or even on the compounds, you get to see ficus religiosa and many other ficus sheila and all of that. You can collect it and start with the cement pot as well. Even the pots we teach you how to make. So it's not very expensive. But with no patience, with you want to acquire bonsai plants without investing your time, that is when it becomes expensive, because you'll have to pay the person who has created it till that time. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So usually, who uses bonsai? Like, who are the folks who reach out to you when it comes to bonsai? Right? Is it for exhibition purpose, or is it like specific people who would want to display it for the sake of the beauty that they exhibit? Or we were also talking about how people can shoot smaller scenes, photography and videography using bonsais. Who are the folks who usually reach out to you though?
Somebody who is always inclined towards gardening, and they are connected with most of the people. When you take people, for example, everyone are connected with nature. That's what gives you inner peace finally. So everybody wants to see, but many of them may not have time. But those who are connected with gardening reach out to me faster, and they want to learn this art. It's in this era and urban agglomeration, the space is a constraint.
True.
So having nature in a miniature form, either in your terrace or in your balcony, is always something which anyone looks forward to.
It's a very good hobby, and it also kind of suits you, right? Like,
Exactly. This hobby teaches you a lot, and it gives you something which you cannot buy. Money cannot buy any. You get connected with nature. You are literally working on nature in miniature form. So it improves your observation skills. It increases your concentration. It's a stress buster. It gives you peace. So all these things you cannot buy it anywhere, in my opinion. So
true. Okay, how do you manage when you are traveling for quite a bit, right? Like, how do you take care of bonsais, and like, do you hand it over to someone, or maybe when you're handing over to someone, there's also concern of how much knowledge that they have to take care of the plant as well, right? Like, what do you do then?
these are hardy trees. Since they are all avenue trees, they are quite hardy. Only thing what it requires is watering. Watering, like any other general gardening, requires watering in the morning. But the time, you have to be very specific when you're watering. Morning 8:30 is the time you have to water. In summer, you require to water in the evening as well. If that is taken care of, I take off usually 15 days to 1 month. And once in 15 days only we fertilize the plants. So I would have trained one fellow to fertilize, and I stick to organic in the month when I'm traveling. When you're feeding plants organic, even if the concentration little varies, for example, if you put little more than required, then it is not going to hamper your plants. So taking care of this is not very, very difficult if you have a little knowledge about general gardening. In fact, your anthurium is as difficult as bonsai.
Okay, but what do you mean when you say organic? Like,
organic is something when you require to feed the plants regularly, the fertilizers, because the soil mixture is very less here. And nothing can compensate like the way Mother Earth can in any pot. Even your general gardening, you require to fertilize for it to flower. So when you are doing chemical fertilizers like nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium in a chemical form, man-made, then it is inorganic. When you're using something like oil cakes, the extract of humic acid, we call the extract of leaf manure extract, humanol, or when you're using seaweed extract, which is organically extracted from the nature, and concentrate of that is organic.
Got it. So generally you prefer using organic fertilizers over the
Yes,
chemical ones?
when it is fully formed bonsais, we stick more to organic because we don't want too much growth, but at the health of the plant should be maintained. When they're in the growing stage, then you give it more of chemical.
Got it. So when we speak of chemicals as well, like we were discussing offline about the nitrogen, phosphorus, and different seasons would require different kind of fertilizers, right? Like, could you give more insights on that?
Yeah, for example, Bangalore doesn't have that much of variation on weather, but people who are residing in Delhi and all that, the temperature reaches 0 degrees sometimes in winter. So that's when you have to give it more of potassium based, because potassium is the one which controls the weather, ups and downs. It gives it the strength, and it is the phosphorus which helps it to grow, the roots to form very well. It gives strength to the roots as well as the trunk line. So that way nitrogen is the one which gives more, number of leaves. So depending on weather conditions, you fertilize.
Got it. And we were also looking at, again, this beautiful structure itself, right? It is so aesthetically pleasing. How do you come up with these ideas of what do you want to create on a basket?
It depends on, mostly your plants are going to tell you what it wants, the way it has grown. Yes. To begin with, when you take a material which has been grown in the thing, it would have formed a particular shape. That is what you as an artist will look into and then form that. Once you have that kind of a style, for example, informal, then you've got to make it into a broom style because you don't have it in your garden. That is when you require as an artist to work on it little more than required. Usually the plant is the one which dictates that this is how I have grown. It tells you the style. There are about 15 to 20 styles. One of it is going to tell you. So,
Which is your favorite style, by the way?
mine is mostly the broom style because it is Indian way. All our trees grows like that. I love broom.
That's nice. Okay. So, is there a way, how much of a, in terms of value of a bonsai, does it increase when you talk of specific forms or styles, right? Is there a specific style that folks are more inclined towards these days, or how does this bonsai market work?
Bonsai market works in number of years as well. The thickness of the plant and which has a good shape. Shape is the one which gives you the value, and also the trunk line. Especially when I say trunk line, how interesting it is, how cracked it is, how the age on the trunk line which is showing. That is what dictates the money. Finally. Yeah.
Okay, but I've seen a few bonsais which they say is like 100 years old, 120 years old. Like, how does that happen? Like, is it generationally passed down?
Yes. In Japan, it's generationally passed from one generation to the other. In Washington DC, National Arboretum, they have 400-year-old bonsai, and they also have bonsai which has survived during Second World War, and Japan, as a matter of friendship gesture, has gifted it to America. That was the only tree all around bombing has survived, the pine tree. So
that's quite
400-year-old.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so which is your favorite bonsai garden? You've visited a lot of them, right?
I have visited a lot of bonsai gardens. The best, what impressed me the most was Kimura's garden in Japan.
Okay. Why though? Why specifically?
He is one of the very good masters. And also my teachers are there, Nacho Marin, Pedro Morales, and also Maro Stemberger. All my teachers' garden is impressed.
So how long have you been studying bonsais though? Like, when did you start and why did you start, by the way? Like, are you the first one who started? Was there an inspiration?
Not really. Bangalore had a bonsai circle. We have a bonsai club named Vriksha Bonsai Circle. So I saw one of the exhibitions and I started bonsai. I took classes from my teacher, Sula Zaveri, and then there was no looking back. I stopped. I was basically an interior designer. I stopped that, and this is where I took off.
That's quite interesting. Yeah. So you joined a club and they were interested in what you were.
Yeah, bonsai is all about, we call it bonsai social. It's all about, being in a group, exchanging ideas, initial part of it. But once you cross that, you have to train with the professionals for you to become a professional.
So you worked on a lot of trees, right? Which is your favorite one, or you're like very proud of?
In my garden, there are a couple of them which I'm very proud of. I started it initially. One is Ficus virens, the other one is Juniper prostata, which is a cascade.
Yeah, we should add pictures of them.
Yeah, yes. And also one Campache now is also taking well. Many of them, in fact, I can't point. Moraya is also looks nice. each one is connected to me in a different way. So
Okay, let me phrase the question differently, right? Which has been the most challenging bonsai for you to grow?
challenging in terms of shaping it. There are few of it, Brazilian rain tree and things like that.
Uh-huh.
But the things which has taught me most is when I have really maintained it for a number of years. The challenges what it throws to maintain it in such a small pot for a longer duration is also challenging.
I think patience is the key there, right? So,
Patience, yes. It teaches patience also.
so anybody who's looking to gain
Yeah.
patience, you should start bonsai art.
Yes. It also teaches the ways of life, I guess, in my opinion, for the reason that you expect it to be like something else and it grows into something else. So you kind of adapt. It teaches you, okay, you have planned something else, it's going to, and you have some losses as well. You come back,
Yeah.
bounce back. Suddenly it gives you a shock that it's going to look dull. One day I come into my terrace, it's so fragrant. My Moria exotica is flowering, the other one is fruiting. So it gives you so much happiness that any materialistic things cannot.
That's true. But that's what I was thinking, right? Like, what if I start my bonsai art 3 years down the line, it gives up? Like, probably something happens and it doesn't. Is there a way for me to revive that?
Yes, definitely. You know the science of. That's when I say what I said about science. When you know the plant is dying, people reach out to me all over India. What has happened to this? You know the disease is part of it.
There are diseases, okay.
Yes,
What
there
are
are a
kind
lot of. See, it could be an insect attack. There is one particular kind of insect. It's called red spider mite. You can't see it from your naked eye. It starts drying. One part of the tree starts just drying, and that's when you know, when you kind of do some tests, you know that it is the insect. It could be a root rot. It could be a fungal attack. So you play a doctor to the plant, and you can revive. Yeah.
So it's more so like.
Right way to tackle the root when it has a root rot. Give it more sand, less water. So what it requires, the experience teaches you basically.
So we can call you bonsai doctor as well going forward. Okay. Let's say, what would you advise for someone who's like a 20, 25-year-old starting their bonsai collection today?
Start right away when you're in. I started at 24, 25. That's how I've reached as a professional now, because it takes at least 15 to 20 years for you to get a good grip of it if you are considering this as a profession. But whereas in Japan, they start at the age of 12.
That's quite
11,
early,
12,
yeah.
because they would have seen their fathers also do it, and they come out as a master, what we call bonsai master. A professional who knows well is called a bonsai master. At the age of 21, 23, they start traveling. But when you start at 25, you will start traveling at the age of 40, 42, which
That takes some time.
takes some time, yes.
Interesting. There are lot many questions which are running in my mind, but with respect to time, let me ask you this one question with respect to the resources. Like, if in case somebody wants to like start off, first thing is they can take up the bonsai workshops and stuff. But are there any interesting books that you've read, or people that you would recommend to follow on social media channels to learn more about bonsais? Where do you think we should start?
There are a lot of books what I've read. One is my teacher Nacho Marin, Pedro Morales books, and Peter Shan, and many others have written. If you go on Zao, many of them have written many books, and also a lot of things on internet. Those are things which you read to get an idea of how to place, what to do, and everything. But for skill, in my opinion, I always want them to get in touch with them and learn it in person.
How long does this workshop take though?
Initially, you have to learn bonsai that's the basic bonsai course, for 3 days, for the duration of 3 to 4 hours. That's when you kind of understand the soil mixture and species and this thing. as and when you acquire the way you have placed the bonsai, the amount of sunlight you have given, the kind of soil mixture you have used teaches you. Like, it's like children, every child is different, every child behaves differently, they also behave more or less, the species is the same, but it also depends on environment you're growing. So that experience teaches you the science part of it. The art part of it, you have to be connected with a group which is practicing bonsai. That is when we call masters from abroad. They kind of teach you certain techniques.
Got it.
Yeah. And you also have friends, like-minded friends. For example, in our club, we kind of go on nursery visits. We visit somebody else's garden 1 month. That inspires you to work better. When you see a better collection, it always inspires you to create something better in your garden as well.
That is true. So community part is very important,
Very
right?
important, yes.
How favorable is the community in India at the moment though?
There are a lot of, in fact, Bangalore has one chapter, Bruksha, which is doing well. And each in Mumbai, there are 4 or 5 chapters.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and in Delhi also 1 or 2 chapters are there. So every city has, for example, Woodmalpet, place like Woodmalpet, which is a small town. It has this one, Coimbatore. So there are a lot of Chennai, lot of groups. Chennai has 3 or 4. So a lot of bigger cities have many groups for the reason that they can't travel longer. This one. So there are a lot of people are connected in bonsai, and you meet them as well during your any conventions which happen. We travel abroad. We go to Indonesia. We go to America. We go to Japan. All of us are connected. I have friends all over world. Blessed to be this hobby.
Yeah, this is lovely. I think it's been quite interesting, Anupama, so far. But is there something which I've missed out from asking today?
I think you've covered most of it, and probably little styles should we look into. No.
Yes, I think we will cover it now. Like after we stop this part, then maybe we'll go back and cover the remaining styles, each and every plant, so that we can. I want to look at different designs that we have as well.
Yeah.
So each
probably
one of them
I didn't talk about penjing, which has a water body, and
correct.
Yeah, little about bonsai.
Yes, I think we can shoot that. But before that, thank you so much for making time today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I enjoyed this podcast as well. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you so much.
When you see the trees in Amazon rainforest or something, there could be a landslide or it could be a hurricane. The tree has fallen. Okay, only a part of it has the roots are really in the ground. This is the trunk line. Okay, this is the trunk line. And little later it leaves out the roots, and these are the branches of the tree, and the branches which were at the bottom have all broken.
So they take the root of
they take the root. These are all roots which are developed. This is the only part. We call this the raft. See, this we call it a cascade style. This happens in between near the waterfall area, in between the ridges and rocks. The seed germinates and comes in search of sunlight, and with sunlight it comes down with waterfall and the gravitational pull as well. Takes a twist, and it settles down. To compensate this fall, it also makes a stronger branch on the top. Otherwise, with that pull, it's going to fall down.
With the gravitational force.
Yes. It is Tseilh, Ficus. Botanical name is Ficus. It's Basri Mara we call in Kannada.
And we have connected few strings here.
Yeah, to pull this down for it to look like a tree.
Or is
instead of wiring and bringing this up to add less this thing to the tree, I kind of bring it down and tie it up like that.
So you're tying it with the root itself?
Root itself. This root has to be cut. It's a crossing root. Or you can put an anchor like this and also tie it up. It's a temperate zone forest. It's called the pencil pine. The trees are all, you can see the go through effect of a forest as well.
That is true,
These are also penjing. This is the
So water
body
here.
and the land part of it and the rocks. These are trees which grows as if it is grown in a deep forest. You go through the water body. A few ships when we are exhibiting, few a small boat, a small house, and few buffaloes to show domestication and
I think you can make it very realistic also, right? So if in
yes.
case we add some water, we can add few fishes as well. Like
Yes,
they
yes.
can.
I had I mean, there is one in Yelahanka where I had added many fishes, and people went crazy with seeing those fishes and fisherman and things like that. This is root on rock, where the roots are the focal point. The roots travel through the rock. Sometimes, as I told you, the birds excreta falls on it, and the seeds which are in the excreta germinates, and rocks can hold certain amount of moisture, so they kind of develop inside the crevices, and as you all know, roots take over and reach the soil.
So this is purely like a waterfall structure also I can see. Like if we just add like a very artificial water
Yeah.
source here, it is a waterfall scene.
Yeah. Can you see a religiosa in a juniper pot? You know how it happens?
No?
Ficus always has berries. The birds eat that and they digest, and their excreta falls on some wall or something, and that excreta has these seeds. That's how they germinate. These are all kept in a smaller pot as well. In fact, when you pick it up like this, you swallow it.
Oh, that's so tiny.
Yeah, this is very tiny. See this?
Oh my god. How long does one take to build this?
It takes about 4, 5 years, 6 years like that. See, it's very tiny.
This is dedication. For a small pot, it takes 4 years, 5 years. Oh my